Hi, I'm Matt from Matt's Great Hall, here to talk to you about one of the most important aspects of sword ownership: safety. Sometimes navigating the pitfalls of online sword shopping can be hazardous, especially if you're relying on a low-res product image on your phone and you're wondering, maybe I should be listening to the guy that's actually holding the sword in his hands, a guy that I trust. That might be the better option.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, what?
They want more convincing.
Really? They do?
Producers want to see how it looks on camera.
Let me look.
And Chris wants it back later today. Recognize it?
Yeah, from...
You like?
No, I can't wear this.
First Avenger.
I know it's
Oh, and this.
a shield, too.
Who's more trustworthy than Cap?
Come on. This isn't gonna work. If that was unclear, okay, the point that I was trying to make was that by now you know me. You've seen some of my sword review videos, perhaps, and hopefully I've built some credibility in regards to my opinions on quality swords and where you can get them. You know what I like, and you've seen my collection because I've reviewed it. Today we're going to look at a sword from Museum Replicas, and this is the Shrewsbury Sword. It was provided to me at no cost, but I hope that you know that I can still be honest and fair about what I like about it and anything I don't like about it. Before we do that, I just want to define the sword market. Basically, and I'm going to generalize here, there are three types of swords. And you've heard this from no one before. This is new stuff. There are only three types of swords that you can buy. Regardless of where you buy them, there's only three, okay? So the first and easiest to understand is the expensive sword. It's expensive because often it's very high quality, and it's often handmade. That particular one was not, but they're often handmade. And then you have a lower level of sword, and this would be like, you know, your wall hanger. If you owned a hammer, but you couldn't use it to hammer, why would you hang it on your wall? You know, if you have a tool and it has no function, then is it really a tool? Anyway, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I have one. I have one to show you, and it's pretty embarrassing. I would never hang this on my wall. And again, I would implore you to stop hanging wall hangers, okay? Don't do it. But I'm going to show you this one time. I don't want to hear about it in the comments. This is really embarrassing. It's really embarrassing for me personally. So I can't even look when I show it to you, but I'm just going to lift it up and then we'll put it away. This is so embarrassing. So here it is. I'm not looking at it. It's just too embarrassing. But that would be like the lowest rung of that ladder. The middle category is the sweet spot. You know, this is where you're going to find an acceptable price and acceptable quality, something that's actually functional and something that you can get at a relatively affordable price for most people. And so what I have today, I think very much fits into this category. As I mentioned already, the sword came from Museum Replicas, and it's made by Windlass Steelcrafts. There's a link in the description where you can purchase it if you're interested. Their website describes this sword as a circa 1400 blade made of 1065 high carbon steel, so it should be able to hold a very sharp edge well. The overall shape is appealing. It's not overly flashy or over embellished. What you're seeing here is a secondary bevel. Instead of a gradual, seamless taper to the edge, the sword was sharpened with slightly less finesse. And if you're a purist and find it unattractive, it is possible to remove it if you have the time and the patience. The pommel is noticeably peened and brightly polished. A small detail that I like is that the crosses on the guard match the cross in the shape. What we definitely need to do is take it outside and see how it cuts. Slicing and dicing produce, in this case fruit, is probably the least challenging test of sword's cutting power or sharpness. But still, it can be affirming. Your sword is not a toy, and we know that because it can cut through a pineapple. Watermelons are similarly soft targets. This one had an overripe, gross-looking center. At this point, though, I probably can't return it. The Shrewsbury had no issue with plastic bottles either. But the standard, you know, on the internet is the tatami mat. I have to say that the Shrewsbury Sword didn't arrive with a razor sharp edge, and I could have spent some time sharpening it, but then you'd have a false impression of what arrived right out of the box. Also, if you're wondering, I did and always do soak my mats submerged in water for about 8 hours. I know this looks pretty brutal, but it's merely indicative of sharpness, and that is something that can be improved on by the end user. Not sure about the sword mechanics here, but the neighbor's going to wonder about the grass log on his roof. Having had a chance to swing it around the backyard at this point, I want to talk to you about my impressions. It's certainly not as big as the Sword. Not sure if you understood that reference, but it is pretty big. It's fairly long, and it has enough room for almost two hands. I mean, basically two hands, if you're okay putting your hand around the pommel. So it's like a hand and a half, and it's fairly lively. I mean, it is. One thing it is very light. It feels so light in hand, and you feel like you have a ton of control. The blade is rather stiff, but you can see it's also springy. So nice combination of the two. As far as the grip itself, I would prefer more shape than that. I like this shape. This feels nice, but in terms of this direction, I would like a little bit more shape there. So that's one thing I would be critical about. But other than that, this is a fun sword to swing. It has no fuller like the other swords that I've reviewed. So I've wanted one of these actually without a fuller, something a little later. Going back to the basics for a second here, our three categories. We know this is not in the top tier. It's not super expensive, and it's definitely not a wall hanger. We know that because it's high carbon steel, it's peened. This is going to be a functional blade. But even though you can check off a few boxes, high carbon steel, peened, maybe some other details, you really can't tell whether it's actually functional unless you've got that recommendation. I really think it's important, and it's difficult to shop online without having somebody to recommend, this is going to be a good quality sword. And so it's actually kind of fun today to be able to do that. I think this really is a good quality sword that you can add to your collection. It's moderately priced, and so that makes it great. You've got value and price. That's what you want. Maybe you're wondering if this is going to stay in my collection or if this is going to be sold at some point down the road, soon, later, whatever. And, after thinking about it a little bit, it honestly was a lot of fun. I think I can find a spot for it. Honey, what is this?
Who's more trustworthy than Cap, right? Oh, and this.